Hello, friends. So, I wanted to jump on and talk a little bit about discernment and energy protection. I'm actually throwing a masterclass on October 3rd, depending on when you're watching this, October 3rd, 2021, about energy protection because this is so important right now. And the link for that is in the description below. If you're interested in that, it's going to be about 2 hours long, maybe longer. We're going to really take a deep dive into energy protection, clearing your space, clearing yourself, discernment, all that fun stuff, because this is a really, really important skill. There will be a live energy clearing, all that fun stuff. So if you want to sign up for that, the link will be in the description below. I would love to see you there. That's going to be a really deep dive on this topic that I can't recommend enough. This is something that I also teach about in my psychic development course. If you're looking to open up your intuitive gifts, you can check that out. It's on my website as always. But the reason why this is so important is because, all of us, all of us need to understand these concepts. I will hear people say things like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to get into all the energy stuff because I don't want to deal with all of the protection and all that." The thing is that whether or not you are conscious of it, you are dealing with it. All right. And I think now more than ever before, there is a lot of energy exchanging going on. There are a lot of people kind of, what I call energy vomiting, throwing their emotions, people feeling more connected than ever before and not really knowing how to responsibly utilize that or even how to discern what's good stuff versus what's not good stuff, right? It's the same thing if you give anybody a Google link, give anybody a Google link and tell them to look things up. If they click on any random website, is that really helpful information? Is that information true? I mean, maybe, maybe not, right? It's the same thing when people turn on their intuitive gifts or start connecting. What are they really connecting with? And is the information helpful? Is it not? Where is it coming from? You don't really know unless that person yourself, right? And this is why it's so important we develop this skill of discernment and protecting our own energy. I really felt called to bring this up uh, today, just because there's been so much shifting. I feel like the last month, well, September has been a really intense month. It has been a really, really intense energetically. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I have been feeling a lot of emotion. It has an energy of prep. And there are a lot of people saying a lot of different things about what they think is going to happen. There are a lot of intuitives expressing what they think is going to happen. And it can feel like there are a lot of people in your ear, right? And that can feel very overwhelming if you don't know how to discern for yourself, or trust yourself or protect your own energy. And a lot of people feel a lot of emotions that aren't necessarily theirs. And I have a lot of clients that have been coming into me recently, and we've just been doing a lot of work really just to clear them because they might feel really depressed and overwhelmed and have all of these fears. And then when we do an energy clearing, suddenly it's like we can actually see clearly now, right? It's like, wait, all that just went away. What was mine versus what is yours? And I say this a lot, but you can start to think about just all of these things that you're feeling or thinking. What if they're just frequencies? And instead of just owning them immediately, just thinking, how do I feel about that? Is that actually mine or is that somebody else's? Right. So I feel that discernment and protection is part of the responsibility of being energetic beings. And as more stuff turns online, it's not even useful. Like intuitive gifts aren't even useful if you don't know how to discern. Okay. And people ask me how to discern. I'm going to go deep dive into the protection and the clearing and discernment in the masterclass. So definitely check that out. But the key thing with discernment is trusting yourself. And I feel like what's really being highlighted right now is how many people don't know how to trust themselves, and also how many people can't be responsible with information or opinions. Are you able to hear somebody state their opinion or share what they're tuning into and simply just receive it as information and then ask yourself, how do I feel about this? Rather than every single thing you hear taking on as truth and then going in this spiral of anxiety, right? There's a lot of beauty in the fact that we have access to so much information on all different types of levels and dimensions. But when we don't know how to handle that, it can cause a lot of confusion, a lot of stress, a lot of upset, and we have to be responsible with this information, right? We can't tell everybody in the world stop sharing your opinion, but how do we respond to it? Some of this is not overstimulating ourselves, right? Do we need to be listening to 100 podcasts and keeping up with 1,000 people on social media and watching 100 YouTube channels all the time and always living for other people's opinions? Or are we giving ourselves space to tune in for ourselves, be really anchored in who we really are, right? How we feel, what we think, reflecting and trusting ourselves first, right? So there's a responsible way to receive information, I will say. And I think that this is really, really key for discernment in general is getting used to what your energy feels like by yourself, right? So giving yourself space. I've talked about this before. Giving yourself space, tuning into your own frequency. This is where meditation is really helpful. But what do you feel like when you're away from everybody else's energy? And really just tuning into what am I feeling? What do I think? And bringing awareness to yourself and your own thoughts and emotions and energy rather than always being entangled with other people because that's really hard to sort out what's yours and what isn't. Once you can develop um, confidence in knowing what is yours, right, and being really rooted in your own, people will call it like an energy frame, right? your your aura, your essence, when you're really rooted in yourself, and then you can kind of go into these other situations and easily pick out what's mine versus what's not mine, right? When I was first learning discernment, I spent a lot of time by myself just tuning in how am I feeling and really noting the nuances of that, and then putting myself into situations, and over time it became easier for me to tell what was mine, what versus what isn't mine, right? The other piece of this is if you're listening to different intuitives and channels, just taking the information, that's interesting, but we never know how somebody's interpreting, right? There can be different levels of interpretation. At the end of the day, I recommend trusting yourself, right? Developing the skill so that you really have confidence and trust in yourself, taking things just as information and then practicing discernment for yourself, right? Because maybe not everything lands with you and that's okay. But maybe there's something that lands with you and you're like, I don't know what that is. Maybe that person just interpreted it in a certain way when if you had received the same vibrational message, you might have interpreted it in a different way, right? And this is where interpretation kind of switches things up, right? Responsible, responsibly receiving information. This is super, super key. Okay. The same thing with when you are connecting with guides. I will tell you now more than ever before, there are a lot of imposter energies, a lot of imposter energies coming up. And I don't say that to scare anybody. It's just the same way if you go up to a stranger on the street, they might be nice, they might not, right? Or somebody might give you good information and somebody could just lie to your face, right? How do you tell? You discern. This all comes back to trust in yourself, and it's happening whether or not you're aware of it. So I think that being conscious of it is really helpful. There's a lot going on in our dream state that some could be predictive. There is also a lot going on in the dream state that is meant to kind of screw with our headspace. And are you bringing that energy into the rest of your day versus clearing yourself, right? Clearing yourself and removing anything that's not yours. And being like, this isn't going to get me off the path of holding on to anchoring into the highest timeline, right? Because there can be all different types of realities going on at once. And so, which one are you going to be in? This is where you either choose to play in the matrix or you break out, basically. But I know the dream state has been crazy. There is healing going on. There are also psychic attacks going on in the dream state. There are messages being shown to us, and it's very interesting to me. I'm just in curiosity about what's literal, what is a metaphor, what is allowing us to move through things emotionally so that they might, or energetically, mentally, so they might not happen physically, right? What is predictive, but also just the number of, in the astral, it's much easier for people to affect us if we haven't learned how to protect ourselves energetically and across dimensions, times, planes, right? In the astral, this is a common time when people can kind of mess with your thoughts, invoke fear. And so if you're in the membership, if you're in the channel collective, definitely watch my video on how to remove hooks and cords and implants, because this is really coming up big time right now, because there's so many people really stepping into their light, calling out the bullshit, seeing the bullshit, and this is just kind of an attempt to get us to not to not listen to that. And if you've talked to people recently and you're like feeling like they're not there, they're not there. Like you're like, what happened? Like, what? Are you here? Are you with me? Right? This isn't a super uncommon thing right now, unfortunately, because there's just a lot going on with our consciousness and a lot of things in the astral and in the physical that are really affecting the way people think, right? But this is just for you to notice and be in control about, right? So if you're in the membership, definitely check out the invocation just to clear yourself. Energy healing can be really helpful. Cutting your cords every day, right? Cutting your cords every day, balancing your chakras every day. There are all kinds of meditations. I have a number in the membership. There are all kinds of meditations that can help you just clear your energy field, right? This is going to be really, really important at this time. Okay. With discernment, when you are communicating with beings, always making sure that they are of the highest light and love. Always asking 3 times, right? But the thing is that if you don't feel confident in your interpretation or intuitive gifts, that might be more difficult, right? But the core thread with discernment, with energy protection, this is all about self-trust and about self-confidence, right? And if everybody around you is telling you one thing, there's something in you that just feels like this isn't right, do you trust everybody else or do you trust yourself, right? As I have learned to anchor into myself and trust myself, this is where my discernment got really, really strong, right? Because I'm not afraid to say, I don't know what y'all are picking up on, and that's cool, but I'm picking up on something different. And I'm going to listen to that. And the more you listen to your intuition, the stronger it gets. But there is some weird stuff going on right now. All right. There is some weird stuff going on right now. And I was just talking to a friend about how it feels like there's a big shift. There's a big shift happening. We are really being called to step into, to fully anchor into our trust, our confidence, what we believe in it on a different level. There are a lot of people in the spiritual space who have kind of gone wonky, right? And a lot of people have been asking me, like, what do you think is going on here? And I think that there are a lot of people that don't know how to discern. Um, you can call yourself spiritual. That doesn't really mean anything, right? Like that doesn't mean anything about your vibration or what you're tuning into. At the end of the day, all I can trust is really myself and what I'm tuning into, how I'm feeling, my own intuition. I trust that, right? And that is my barometer for when I'm listening to other people and just hearing what they're saying, right? If I am if somebody's tuning into something, they could be picking up on just a collective fear. They could be picking up on somebody else's thought. They could be picking up on a timeline that isn't even the most likely. They could be talking to a being that isn't great, right? Um, they could be misinterpreting. All of this happens, right? And it's not about making anybody wrong. They're not bad, right? But it's just interesting. Um, that can happen, but at the end of the day, are you going to let that screw with the way you're thinking and let yourself go into like this deep state of fear or anxiety or confusion? Because the anxiety and the confusion really dies down a lot when you learn to trust yourself, right? So where did you learn that you couldn't trust yourself? A lot of this starts in childhood. A lot of this starts with the little comments. Oh, you're not cold, you're fine. No, there wasn't a noise. There's nothing over there. You're fine. There's nothing in your closet, right? A lot of this starts when you're really young. When did you learn that you couldn't trust yourself? That person that you thought really liked you, you knew it. And then they went around, started dating someone else, and you thought, "Ugh, I can't trust myself anymore. I never know what's going to go on," right? Start to think about when did you learn that you couldn't trust yourself? Really, all these little moments, and let that rise to the surface. And this is the stuff to start to go into and review, because when we can, heal those moments and forgive ourselves and kind of see it from a different lens, shift the perspective around it, we can start to realize that we can trust ourselves, right? And you build that muscle by practicing, right? And listening to your intuition in small ways and seeing, wow, it works out, right? And by practicing, whenever you're receiving any information, it could be on Google, it could be on Instagram, it could be on whatever. How does this feel for me? How does this feel for me? But here's the thing, and this is something the guides talk about a lot that was very helpful for me, because if we think about how like attracts like, okay? If somebody is at a certain frequency and they receive information of a certain frequency, they're probably going to be drawn to it. Right? This is where people can kind of get wrapped up in things that might not be of the highest vibration. But if we do this individual work, right, to raise our vibration, we are naturally high vibrational beings, but we're just releasing all of the low frequencies that we're holding on to, everything that's clouding us. We're really getting back to our natural state, because you do know, right? So we're releasing all the doubt, all the fear, all the resistance. And we're doing a lot of this personal work, and we raise our vibration naturally. And if I'm operating at this higher level of consciousness, at this higher frequency, now it's much easier for me to discern, because it's what feels resonant to me, right? So when people say, what resonates, in a way it's sort of misleading, because depending on what frequency you're at, whatever you're vibrating with, what resonates is going to be at that same vibration. But if I'm in fear, or if I'm in anger, if I'm in judgment, if I'm in guilt, what do you think I'm going to resonate with? Right? There are these moments when, that's not core to us. That's not core to us. And we can see, oh, I can feel that in my body, and I see this and it feels like it's raising my vibration. Right? And that resonates to this higher part of me, the truer part of me, the inner part of me. And I'm going to let myself go up to that frequency. Right? So this is the discernment and resonance. It's not as simple as just like, oh, what am I drawn to, or what makes sense to me, because it depends on basically the frequency that we're really embodying in that moment. Right? So the more you do this personal work, the more you do this personal expansion and growth and really getting back to your high vibrational state, the easier it becomes to discern. When I discern, right, I would never, like, if I want to tune into something psychically, if I'm afraid, if I'm like in a fear state, if I'm like stressed out, that is never the time when I go in. I wait, I calm myself down. I might have to wait a few days. I make sure that I'm in a very high frequency state, right? Really rooted in love and truth. And I set that intention. And then I tune into that energy, and where is it landing on the energetic scale? That's the difference. All right. So this is really, really important with discernment right now. People are saying all kinds of things, and that's totally fine. But what are you choosing to believe? What really lands with you? What lands with the truest version of you? Right? And something that's really simple is setting the intention to align yourself with love and truth first, and really just letting yourself be in that vibration. Doing a meditation to get in that state will be really helpful. And then discerning, because you will perceive things differently depending on your emotional state. We know this, right? You know this. If you're just in a bad mood, if you're angry, and your little sister or little brother says something to you, it might annoy the shit out of you. You might be so angry. Like, why would you do that? Don't talk to me right now, right? But if you're in a really high vibe, like love and state, and your little brother or sister asks you a question, like, yeah, come on, I'll explain it to you. Let's hang out, right? We will respond and perceive things differently. I could perceive my sibling as being annoying, or really cute, and I want to help them, and I'm excited, right? Depending on my emotional, energetic state. Emotions, energy, and motion, right? So it's really helpful to discern, right? If we are first calibrating to that vibration of love and truth first, and then what's going on? What's the resonance with this that I'm tapping into, right? This is also about the confidence and trust in our core beliefs, knowing who we are, knowing what we believe, and doing some of that work. And that's not just copying what somebody else says, but when I know the core of my beliefs and somebody's saying something, and I'm like, why does this not make me feel good? I can start to notice where the dissonance is and learn from that in one way or another. All right. With energy protection, there's so much I could say here. I mentioned the cutting the cords, putting up energy shields, doing energy work, um, not hanging out around people who are not making you feel great, right? If you notice that anybody that you listen to or talk to makes you feel stressed or shitty in any way, or it's all fear, it's just it's not helpful, it's not making you feel good. Maybe they're very judgmental, right? Like for me, I will not hang out around people who make judgments about people. It's very interesting how common that is. um People will just like say things and I'm like, I will not be around that. That is so low frequency, right? Just to people who pick out the negative and other, like, absolutely not. I don't deal with that. So things like that, right? What's pulling down your vibration? Really setting up boundaries. Boundaries are so key right now. And to be honest, there's this line that I can't tell you what it is, but there's this line where it's like, okay, at what point am I avoiding, right? Being in avoidance isn't really helpful. But at the same time, where am I putting myself in situations where I am dealing with more energy than maybe is healthy for me? In terms of evolution, we're not meant to deal with as many people, right? We would know maybe 100 people, meet 100 people in our lives. And now how many people are we connected to? But it's okay to unfollow people on social media. It's okay to delete your social media apps. It's okay to limit how much you are in touch with everybody else, right? Or how much how much you're talking to people. Um, it's I always think whenever one of the things that helped me when I was first really learning to set boundaries for myself is I would think, well, if I lived in not even that long ago, like 1950, would this be an issue? It's like in 1950, all these people wouldn't be texting me. I wouldn't have Instagram, right? Somebody would have to like call my house phone or come over to my house to even talk to me. And I would almost use that as just to compare in my head of like, I think it's okay if I don't know all this information every single day, right? And I will say the more I've drawn boundaries, the more I have learned that anything I need to know comes in my sphere. Like I will find out one way or another, right? Somebody will tell me it's going to be a big thing. But I think that there's so much, anxiety and stress and depression and actually, weird shifting of timelines because so many people are inundated with information that is very fear-based, right? I mean, this is literally the point of the news. This is like literally the point of the news. They get paid based on how many people are watching, and and all this fear-based hypnosis is addictive. It's addictive for people. Um, so that's the point of it, right? That's the point of it. And when you can realize that, well, I'm not going to put myself in that situation. I'm not going to put I don't willingly go and watch, for me personally, like scary movies that I know are going to trigger some low frequency emotions. Like I just don't watch them. I don't need to. My life is great without those movies, right? I don't need to know that. Um so just thinking about these things, or even music, right? A lot of times people when they're sad, they want to listen to sad music, and is it helping you, or is it facilitating more sad music? There's all kinds of things in music, right? But I think, the most helpful thing is getting in your own energy state and using that as a point of reference. When I'm by myself and when I am the highest frequency version of myself, when I'm full love and joy and I'm playful, I'm creative and I'm happy, right? Let this be my set point. Let this be my set point, and then I'm going to compare to other things that I come into contact with, whether it be physical or energetic. And this is how you start to discern, right? So for me, I can tell via how I'm feeling in my body, also my intuitive gifts, right? But I had to learn to develop that trust, right? So I have to first learn to trust myself before I would be able to even discern. Okay. But there's so much going on right now that it's very confusing to people. Um, and I've had a lot of friends and colleagues ask me, like, what is going on with this person? And it's like, you never know what other people are into, talking to, hanging around, and I'm sure we've all experienced, I know I certainly have many times in my life, friends who change overnight. Well, not really overnight, sometimes overnight. They will change very quickly because they started hanging out with a new friend or a new group. And it's like, whoa, who are you now? Right? People can change. People can change. And that's okay. That's it. But now is the time on the planet. It sounds so dramatic, but this is a wild time to be alive. This is like so interesting. It's so interesting. it is the time when we are being called to like really hold the vibration and and trust yourself and really, really trust yourself to follow every to follow what you think the masses are doing, which most of that is not even real, I will say. I just don't think is the best way to go. I just don't think it's the best way to go. And you got to think instant gratification or long-term high frequency 5D life chilling, right? Because we might have to have hard conversations right now if it comes up, right? But this is these are all the moments where we are anchoring in who we really are and who we want to be and what the timeline is that we're anchoring into and what we want to create on this planet. Right? The truth is rising. The truth is rising. But I really just wanted to make this video because energetic protection and discernment is more important now than ever before. And with these tools, this will allow you to not be in a fear state. I wish I struggled with things that I struggled with, like diagnosed generalized anxiety disorder and chronic depression for much of my life. And learning discernment and protection were two huge things, clearing myself energetically that allowed me to really come out of that because I realized so much of that was not my own. So much of that were just energies kind of screwing with my headspace, my consciousness, not even my own, that I didn't have to take on other people's projections, that I didn't have to take on other people's fears or worries. And if you're listening to this, if you're in this community, I wouldn't be surprised if you're an empath and how much of that is your own. And let me tell you, like, so many people are feeling everything in the world. That's a lot. Like we have so much information, we see so many things, and it can be a lot just to carry our own emotions sometimes and just move through that and give ourselves space for that, let alone trying to carry everything for everybody else, right? So the difference between tuning into that and knowing what's going on versus trying to carry that all as one person, right? So noticing what is mine versus what is not. What can I just notice versus what do I have to take on my own, right? And learning discernment because you never know if other people are discerning responsibly or not, or what their process is like, right? So this is trusting yourself and what resonates, what makes you feel good, what helps you, because you will know. You will know what improves your life. You will know what makes you feel good. You will know, right? And and this is one of the most powerful skills you can ever develop is discernment, energy protection, right? When you're tuning in to literally any type of information, it's like it's the same way as if you're doing research for your college paper and you go on Google or you go on wherever you go, you're like trying to browse for information and you can tell which websites are sketch, which ones are weird, and which ones are actually might be legit, right? There's something in you that's telling you. It's the same idea, right? But there's so much going on in the collective. The veil is really thin. There's a lot going on in the astral, right? And and it's super valuable to know what's just the collective energy, what just, you know, somebody else's thought, their emotion, this energy vomiting versus what am I actually feeling? What do I actually think? And what do I actually perceived to be truth based on me being at my set point, a very high frequency, aligned with the frequency of truth, aligned with the energy of love. And then how is this feeling? How is this resonating? The whole point of this is that the power lies with you. This is all about taking your personal power back. It's a really, really powerful time to be alive. So, just some thoughts on protection and discernment. I know people are really emotional right now and things are getting intense, and these tools are so, so powerful. This is about self sufficiency. All right. So, if you want the deep dive into this, check out the masterclass. It's probably going to be like 2.5 hours. It's going to be pretty long, jam packed. You'll get the replay. The link is in the description below. That will be October 3rd, 2021. And also, if you are opening up your intuitive gifts, I definitely recommend my psychic development course or any other psychic development program that really trains you properly in discernment and protection, because to me, that is absolutely key. And yeah, hope this lands. If it was helpful, then definitely leave a thumbs up button. If you want to make sure that you don't miss future videos, then hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you'll get notified when I go live and when I post videos. And I'm sending you lots of love, lots of healing, all the good vibes. Don't forget, you're more powerful than you think, and I will see you in a future video.